We have updated failed to deliver data. That's for NIO Stock. I've got it on screen. In fact, let me jump over quickly so you can see Fintel is not showing any data for the month of September. But if we go back to Chart Exchange, and I pay to get this data, which is why I don't share this in the links typically, what you'll see here is it looks like the end of August and into early September, there were 2.3 million shares that couldn't be located, followed by 1.6 million shares that couldn't be located, and another 1.6 million shares. That's into early September. So the shorts are still probably playing their games. There could have been naked shorting going on. It still could be going on, at least unless or until they get caught and torched. We've maybe seen this play out before, but I've got it on the ticker at the bottom of the screen for the short-term stock price, the factors that I watch. The first is trade volume. So let's visit that right now. This is Monday, September 30th, 2024. It's about 2 hours into the market open, not quite that far into the market open, and almost 120 million shares traded of NIO stock today. That's big volume for NIO. So that's elevated. That's positive. We've seen that just recently. Will it continue during this time frame where NIO stock price absolutely tore and rocketed up? We had the drop off of the fails to deliver, which is why that's the second thing that I track. But that was also in conjunction with elevated big stock volume on the average daily side of things. So for example, random day here, 74 million shares were traded on this day. How about this day? 117 million shares traded this day, 267 million shares traded. So we would see, I'm going to say at least 80 to 100 million shares traded almost every single day during this time frame. And again, that kind of, it looks like there's a correlation between the stock price for NIO and the fails to deliver, because early on with the stock price history of NIO, you had big fails to deliver data. Then you had those drop off with the NIO stock price rocketing up. And then it's taken about 3 years for this thing to be brought back down. And what I have talked about here in the last months is this 5 million spike and the 6 million spike. We hadn't seen these levels of FTDs for NIO stock since all the way back in late 2019 and early 2020. That was a few months before the stock price absolutely started on its way. And then we eventually saw perhaps shorts getting torched. Maybe we see that again. It is certainly possible. But let's talk a little bit big picture, because that's really the long-term play is what I'm excited about. We're going to get monthly delivery data, hopefully on October 1st from NIO. I say hopefully because October 1st through the 7th, I believe the full week is a holiday week in China. So I'm just curious what stock price action looks like, and then also what we get for numbers. I'm thinking and hoping for a new monthly delivery record for NIO, especially as they just have a few days of their new sub-brand Envo, the L60. But this is a sign that is appearing in all of these windshields in a showroom. And what it means is this car has been sold. So it looks to me like with the launching of Envo, the first sub-brand by NIO, the NIO sales are actually going up too. And so this aligns with my first major growth phase for NIO, market awareness, as the brand is still becoming known and recognized in China. Here's the other thing that just started on September 30th, the 4th generation battery swap station of NIO, jointly built by Wuhan NIO Energy and Shandong Sannang Digital Intelligence Industrial Park, was officially launched. But this is kind of the beginning. And I think NIO intentionally waited for the partners and the continued build out of power swap stations, for example, until they had Envo released. And now they're going to push forward with that. So these are some of the highlights and some of the opportunities that NIO is presenting to partners, as partners are going to help fund the build out of this infrastructure. I love the business model, and the genius of Mr. EQ is what I call him, William Lee, who runs NIO. I think he sees a lot of things into the future that others aren't seeing. I believe he is beautifully leveraging partnerships and things like that. Rolf says, why is Zeekr climbing faster than NIO? I took a quick look at the fails to deliver for Zeekr, incredibly low. And so it hasn't been listed very long, but this is also, we've seen this play out before with Xiaopeng and Li Auto. They trade higher than NIO. A lot of people talk about the float. I talk less about that. The fails to deliver, I think NIO has potentially been shorted in 3 different baskets: as a Chinese stock, as an EV stock, and as a meme stock. So I think there's a lot more of that kind of bearish thesis, that short thesis, that in the short term, at least over the last 3 years, has kind of been in play. we'll see what happens. I think this next week, I'm kind of, watching to see what goes on with that. Carl says, here we go, double digits soon. Hey, it's certainly possible, especially as if we look back at what NIO has done, historically. And this is interesting to me, is I just wonder, I'm just going to think out loud here as I'm seeing the stock price for NIO has now been pushed down to 703, 704. Pre-market, it was 772, and I'm seeing this big trade volume. I'm sure that there's some retail folks involved, but I'm wondering how many, big money funds are either getting long right now or are trying to push this thing down because they have short positions that they're scared of seeing something like this happen from. I don't know, but like I said, I'm just thinking out loud here. So let's get back to comments. I want to wrap this up. I didn't get a video out Sunday night, and so I dropped a whatever it's called, a little community post, and just said, hey, what do you want me to talk about? So that's why I wanted to address these comments. PB, what's up, Peter? He says, general synopsis of the past 7 exciting days, AA. I think, it could kind of be summarized. And the one thing I haven't mentioned in this video is Alibaba. I don't have it queued up, but if you look at the recent trade volume for Alibaba, it's consistent with what I said I'm watching for on the short-term stock price stuff. This applies, across the board, I think, to most stocks, especially if there are fails to deliver. And for a very profitable company, Alibaba does have those. So seeing that bigger trade volume with a clear move up with the stock price, I think that may be the indicator that big money is starting to flow back into Chinese stocks. But it's going to be interesting to track this moving forward with NIO, because I do think that there are still shorts trying to keep this thing down, or maybe some big money that wants to get long. So, will this continue? That's the question for me. And I don't know. I'll keep the ticker with those things on it until I feel like it's clear and obvious that we are in an uptrend. I think we've got some good initial spots, but I want to give it more time. So anyway, that's my thought with the recent 7 days, and then kind of looking ahead as well. Dave says, did you see it yet? And this is from last night. So NIO up in Singapore and Hong Kong, going to open above 750 tomorrow. And as I just said a little bit ago, Dave, you called it, 770 something in pre-market. And then Jesse shares with Jesse where he can see it. But this is fun. And again, I think it's interesting because Singapore doesn't usually do a lot of volume for NIO stock. And so if, the Chinese markets are shut down for the holiday, what happens in the US market with NIO stock? So I'll just be tracking all that. But again, hopefully we'll get the monthly delivery record. I'm way more focused on things like that. It's just kind of fun to monitor and track the short-term stuff. James says what new money means and envo deliveries and future stock price. Future stock price, that's the single hardest thing to predict. And it's because if you look here, even though we get the fails to deliver data, and as I shared, Fintel is trailing on this, but we're still way out on this. I mean, this is the latest data we have is just from September 12th. And this is the end of September as I'm doing this video. So this is one of the challenges with stock price prediction is if we don't know whether this kind of failed to deliver volume is going on or this is going on, I think that has implications on the stock price. And we'll never get access to that. But I do think that the third key, sentiment, and a shift in sentiment could trigger or be a part of either a short squeeze if we're to see something like that short term, or shorts finally realizing they just need to get out of the way before they get crushed or torched. And so that's the, just kind of my overview and thoughts on the stock price. As far as the new money, this is a reference, and I'm not going to cover it in this video. I don't have time. I'm trying to get a quick video up. But I'm very bullish. I'm very happy to see what NIO did. And in fact, I retweeted it on Twixter. So if you're over there, check that out. And I'll come back. I just said I love seeing this, but I haven't elaborated on it. I think there are a few reasons that William Lee did it. I think it's all bullish. I think envo deliveries could surprise. I'm hoping they will. We'll see. Maybe, perhaps as soon as tomorrow. But let me get back to comments now. Mohammed says, anyone else see the overnight stock price? Yes, absolutely. And Dave commented, good. I'm glad, because I obviously haven't gotten to the comments yet until now the next morning. Ralph says, history repeats with China money investment, new big move coming. That is the question. And it's so interesting. I think this could get really fascinating, especially into October. If the Fed does another cut, then what happens? Do we see more bullishness and more money flow into China? Or are big money funds from Wall Street deciding it's cheap enough that they want to get positioned? I don't know. And what happens in the US election and how will that impact things? These are kind of things that are in my mind. So I'm just kind of throwing them out there rather than just trying to call something. But long term, I'm so confident in what this company is doing, NIO. That's why it's always been a long term play for me. FTDs are always interesting to see. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad I had an update to cover and address and share that. It's so interesting. The levels and watching all this price action. Do you think that this is all retail money doing a quick buy and sell, or do you think that maybe big money is freaking out and trying really hard to suppress stock price after they've seen it pop up? And let's face it, what they don't know, if they're short, they don't want this to happen. And these 5 and 6 million, single days where they couldn't find shares, I don't trust the short term at all. As long as big money's involved in it, I'm not going to trust it. I still think profitability is really important for NIO, but that's also why I'm going to just keep things up on the ticker with respect to the short term, because we just don't have access to all the data real time. And so I don't even know if we're getting true price discovery. You know what I mean? So anyway, let me get this thing up and out. Have a great day. Holy cow, I talked so much longer than I planned on. All right, I guess I'll have to create some timestamps and do this as a longer video. So anyway, come back and see me again. I'll see y'all again very soon.